Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's screening of The Watchman. Firstly, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Jessica, and I am the art manager at David Shepherd Wildlife Foundation. From the bottom of our hearts, we would like to say thank you to each and every one of you for coming. Without support such as yours, we would not be able to put on events like this to raise vital funds for wildlife. A few housekeeping rules: the bathrooms are downstairs at the back on the left, and the fire escape is if you leave this door here. To the right, you'll see another staircase. You just go down those stairs and it will lead you to a little courtyard outside. I hope you all had a good chance to network downstairs and enter into tonight's raffle. Tickets are £5 and the lucky winner will be presented with a stunning Alicia Hayden piece and a Druin art box worth £130. We will shortly be hearing from wildlife artist Martin Aveling on environmental artivism before the screening of The Watchman, and that will be followed by a Q&A. For those of you who are new to DSWF, we are a highly effective wildlife charity funding key conservation projects across Africa and Asia. Founded by celebrated artist David Shepherd, our ground-based conservation partners operate on the front line fighting against wildlife crime, working to protect some of the world's last wildlife strongholds and its pristine wilderness. As the climate catastrophe escalates, the pressure on dwindling wildlife populations grows, and DSWF, as the centre of ensuring wildlife, is giving the fighting chance it needs to stabilise and recover. For over 50 years, David Shepherd dedicated his life to protecting some of the most iconic and endangered species. Becoming internationally renowned for his wildlife art, he used his gift to grace the canvas with depictions of elephants, tigers, leopards, and more. In 1973, David sold one of his oil paintings for £127,000, which is the equivalent of £1.4 million today, for India's Gandhi's Operation Tiger in India, which paved the way for the Foundation's inception in 1984. By investing in economically and socially vulnerable communities at the heart of the conservation landscape, David Shepherd Wildlife Foundation supports programs with a real impact on real people in real places, and we fight against to turn the tide of extinction. One of our most valuable fundraising campaigns is Wildlife Artist of the Year. Once referred to as the Oscars of wildlife art, WAY is a globally renowned art competition and exhibition. Each year, attracting entries from some of the most talented artists from around the globe who come together to celebrate the beauty of the natural world. Since its inception in 2008, Wildlife Artist of the Year has raised more than £1.7 million to benefit DSWF's ground-based conservation efforts and has played a vital role in funding most of our projects. The competition contains 8 categories: animal behaviour, Earth's well beauty, facing extinction, wings, into the blue, youth exclusive, and new to 2023, environmental artivism and abstract world. Art plays a powerful role in the recovery of the natural world, and it reminds people how intrinsically linked we are to planetary health. The impact of WAY is one of many reasons why we are so proud to work with our wildlife warriors, some of whom are in the room tonight, who display their passion through art rather than words. One of our most valued wildlife warriors, of course, is Martin Aveling. Martin was the first ever recipient of the David Shepherd Art Survival Award and has been a finalist in Wildlife Art of the Year no less than 14 times. Martin has been integral in establishing the Human Impact, now called Youth Exclusive, Award for Wildlife Artist of the Year, and he is a true ambassador for artivism. I hope you all enjoy the film, and if you have any questions, please do ask in the Q&A section of the evening. Over to you, Martin.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. Looking out, it does look like we managed to sell a few more tickets this week, which is really great to see. And I know that some of you here have been helping to promote this event online, so we very much appreciate it. As Jess was saying, I'm a partner artist here at DSWF, and I've been working with them to help bring about more youth involvement in the charity, specifically through their marquee art competition, Wildlife Artist of the Year, or WAY. We set up the youth category 4 years ago in memory of my good friend and patron Ingrid Beasley, who was someone who did so much for young artists before she sadly passed away 6 years ago. Alicia is a past winner of the youth category, and I'm sure she's going to talk a little bit more about what it's meant to her winning this award. I'm very, very excited for the CF film, which I've now seen 4 times. So, let's talk wildlife art. I don't know if any of you have spent time recently flicking through a popular book on art history. Well, I have. And I'll tell you what, not a lot of wildlife in there. Apart from the first chapter, obviously, when we painted on the walls of caves. But beyond that, there really isn't much to see. About 16 years ago, when I was just starting out as a professional wildlife artist, I remember watching a program on TV. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was one of those portrait artists of the year type shows. But I remember this art critic presenter commenting on a painting of an elephant that a contestant had done. And he said to her, of course, you know, wildlife art is not a pure form of art. It's more of a hobbyist pursuit. So, what? Isn't wildlife art maybe the purest form of art, given that the first human creators on Earth were essentially wildlife artists? I mean, if you look back at those early cave paintings, it's the wildlife that was celebrated. Any depictions of humans are often just quick stick figures. But the wildlife, that took center stage. There has been, and still is sadly, a degree of irreverence shown towards wildlife art from the mainstream. And it's not just me. I've spoken to many wildlife artists who have experienced a similar attitude towards their chosen subjects. And mainstream art competitions won't even look at us. I mean, I had a piece that was highly commended in a way and wasn't even selected for another art competition. And I know art is subjective, but you know what's not subjective? Extinction. We need the art world to take wildlife art seriously because we're currently experiencing a mass extinction event and they're not covering it. So that's just not right. So what can we do about it? Well, one thing is we can all help to raise the profile of wildlife art by sharing and liking as much of it as possible on social media. We want those algorithms to see it as valuable, or at the very least something people are talking about so that they stay glued to their phones. Better yet, try and get it talked about in the mainstream, where it reaches people who aren't yet converted to the cause. Because we need to be smart about the audience we're targeting. I mean, it's nice getting lots of likes and shares on social media, but we're not the ones who need convincing. The trouble is, it's hard to get people's attention. Right? So much noise out there, it's hard to be seen and heard. So here's something else you can do. Start practicing wildlife artivism. Now, before I talk a little bit more about this, I just want to address something that I hear a lot, and that's people saying that hard-hitting content turns people away from the cause. And I just don't buy that. Firstly, if you are someone who is so easily put off wildlife because you can't look at the bad stuff, then I don't know if you have the heart for the fight. Because it is a fight, let's be real about that. But secondly, wildlife artivism doesn't have to look ugly. In fact, it's better when it isn't. The role of artivism is to communicate an SOS, in our case, wildlife. To let people know that all is not well in the Garden of Eden. Mother Nature, she's struggling. She needs to be heard, and we are the messengers. I think for the most part, people are just grateful to be reminded. Because life is tough. There's so much going on. It's so much noise. You know, our social circles have just got a hell of a lot bigger. Those algorithms are just constantly pushing us stuff that they think we might want to buy. And there just isn't the headspace for a lot of people to stay up to date with what's happening to wildlife. And in that kind of environment, a beautiful portrait of a tiger on its own just doesn't elicit enough concern. Do you know what happened when everyone watched the BBC Landmark series Blue Planet? They were in awe, sure. But they also didn't take any action because the filmmakers hadn't drawn attention to the need for it. Everyone just thought the oceans were fine and moved on. I know this because before I decided to make art my career, I went on a weekend wildlife filmmaking course. And this came up. And I remember during that seminar, I put my hand up and said, but surely people seeing these amazing images of wildlife in all their glory feel compelled to want to protect them. Optimism, blind optimism. I was shot down, politely shot down, sunk back into my chair all embarrassed, but it was a valid point. Why would they know? Well, imagine an Attenborough documentary now that didn't mention the climate crisis or habitat loss or reference conservation in any way. It just wouldn't happen. So, wildlife artivism can be all sorts. For me personally, I like to try and work in a message into the artwork itself to kind of pique people's interests long enough that maybe curiosity leads them to the truth. But if you are someone who practices more traditional wildlife art, but you have a popular podcast or something, and you talk about conservation, then you're an artist too. Because we need all types. Because we all get our inspiration in different ways. But please don't think that just because it's ugly, it can't inspire positive change. Let's take our founder, the legendary David Chapman. He was a happy artist until he witnessed a horrific scene of a herd of poisoned dead zebras around a watering hole. And that was the day he became an artist. He channeled that angst into setting on a foundation. He committed his creativity to protecting wildlife. He also knew that we were better together. So he set up Wildlife Artist of the Year, which now receives entries from thousands of entries from artists all across the world, and for many people has become the standard for wildlife art. Personally, I don't think a better annual collection of wildlife art exists. So we need wildlife artivism not to turn people off wildlife, but to turn them on to its plight. Now I should say as well, wildlife art that isn't artivism does have a huge role to play in conservation as well, and that's fundraising. None of the work can happen without funding. And from my experience, wildlife artists are extremely generous, sometimes too generous actually. You've got to remember that funding doesn't come about without your amazing creation, so be sure to value yourself. You know, the people working for the charities that you're supporting, they get a salary, and the same security should be afforded to the artist. It's just a much more sustainable model that way. And DSWF knows that. That's why through Wildlife Artist of the Year, they take a 50% commission, and then the artist keeps the rest, so that we can keep being artists. Entering Wildlife Artist of the Year is a really great place to start if you want to use your art to help conservation. And we continue to try and make the competition more inclusive by bringing in new categories, like the environmental artivism category and the youth category. And putting aside what I said earlier, it is possible to want to keep fighting the fight, but also feel incredibly overwhelmed and sad about the current situation. Of course it is. And we know that. That's why through the youth category, the youth category grants, we support an organisation who are helping people suffering with eco-anxiety. Now, obviously not everyone entering Wildlife Artists of the Year can be selected. But here's the great thing. Just by entering, you're already contributing to conservation with your art. Because I sit on the judging panel for the youth category, and trust me, we see all of your work, and it brightens our day. Deciding what to put through is unbelievably difficult, but it's still a day that I always look forward to because we get to see great art and hear moving stories. So my message is, please enter. I've been Mark, thank you so much for listening. And now on to the main event. I'm going to hand you over to Alicia for the premiere of The Watchman.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming, because I really appreciate you guys giving up a Friday night to come and see the film and to hear me and Mark talk about it. So, as you said, I'm Alicia. I'm a wildlife artist and filmmaker, among other things, from North Yorkshire originally, and now I live in Bristol. And last year I was doing a Masters in Wildlife Filmmaking over in Bristol at UE, and as part of that I produced this film, but I'll mention more about that in a second. But in the meantime, I kind of want to explain about art and how I got involved in artivism. So in like 2 years ago, I saw one of Mart's pieces online. It was the tiger turning into a barcode. And I was studying biology at the time, and I just thought it was so powerful because it kind of linked into everything I was learning about kind of the human-wildlife trade, the wildlife trade and humans' impact on the environment. And I just thought it was fascinating. It was such a cool kind of way of communicating science. And at the same time, I was starting to do a summer school with the British Ecological Society, and I was looking a lot into marine animals and noise pollution, and specifically focusing on cetaceans. And I just thought, like, you know, I'd seen Mart's piece, and I just sort of was always drawing and things, and I just thought, oh wait, maybe I should just kind of merge these things, like, you know, merge kind of art and science and make a form of science communication, a bit like what Mart was doing. And so I started working on my piece, When the Whale Sang, which won the Human Impact category in 2021, which is still a very surreal and exciting thing to have happened, and so I'm very grateful for Mart liking my piece. So When the Whale Sang, if you've not seen it, it's a whale turning into noise pollution. So it's fragmenting and it's distorting, and it's reflecting the fact that whales are quite distressed by our sort of sonar and our marine noise. But I also wanted it to look a little bit ambiguous, potentially a little bit hopeful. It's quite a beautiful image when you look at it, because this whale is turning something that is almost like a song, right? It's like the whale's beautiful song when it sings into the ocean. So I liked the fact that you could read it two ways. And so I think a lot of my art, I try and have that ambiguity, and sometimes I try and be more into the message. But I just think that art, be it like, you know, visual or written or spoken or, you know, any form of art is so powerful because it reaches that different audience. People aren't reading scientific papers, they're watching things and they're reading things and they're looking at stuff. And that is so much more powerful. And I think everyone can do it. Like, I genuinely believe that. So in 2021, Mark hosted an artist panel with DSWF Wildlife Foundation, and on it was TICH. And I thought he was fantastic. He was so softly spoken, but everything he said was really powerful. And he was just fantastic. And so we kept in touch. And then when I was doing my masters, I had to think about film. And I knew I wanted it to be artistic and art-related, just because of my personality. And I was chatting to my supervisor, and he said, have you got any underrepresented artists that you'd like to kind of highlight with your film? And I said, yeah, I've got this great guy called Titch, and his art is great. And I showed him Titch's work, and my supervisor said, well, you've got to do it on this guy. So I contacted Titch and I said, hey, would you like to do a film? And he said yes, which I'm very pleased for. And he's the most magnificent person, and obviously an outstanding artist. And I was kind of really surprised to find out we've not done an exhibition before, a solo exhibition. And I said, would you like to do one? Like, you know, we can follow it with a film. And so we worked to put on his first solo exhibition in Victoria Falls. And it's been amazing to see how much that's kind of grown his confidence. He was so nervous, and like to see how many he's put on since has been like utterly like fantastic. And I'm really happy that like he's grown so much, like just from kind of, you know, since I filmed him last year. So yeah, I thank you so much for coming to see the film, and I really hope you enjoy it.
Well, I think we can all agree that was amazing. Wow. I've seen it so many times, every single time I well up. We'll just do a quick Q&A, so if any questions, please just raise your hand and shoot.
How did you meet Tick?
Is this it? Yeah. It was on this artist panel, so I met him. Is it like how I met him first, or when I was out there?
Yeah, when you first met him, how did it start?
So that was the artist panel with Mart. So Mart asked me in, I don't know, it was before I knew that I'd won the category. But so you,
2020.
it was 2021. I don't know, 2020 or 2021. And Mart got in touch and said, do you want to do a panel? I'm inviting some artists, and I said yes, so it was cool. And TICH was on the panel, and so we did a couple of rehearsals and sort of chatted a little bit, and then the panel was about an hour and a half, and I think it was just sort of lots of different, we were chatting mostly about artivism and kind of the power of art storytelling. It's on YouTube, and TICH was on that, and we just kind of kept in touch, just kind of basically like, following each other on Instagram and kind of just messaging now and then, just because I thought it was doing really cool stuff. And then, so I not met him in person before, and so the first time I met him in person was when I went to make the film. Yeah.
What year did you make the film?
What?
What year?
What year? Last year. Yeah. So I did it, I started planning in January 2022, and then I fundraised to go, so I could afford to go between February and March. And then I flew, filmed for 6 days in May, and then edited from June onwards until September. Yeah.
Where did you make the film? Where was it?
Victoria Falls. Yeah.
Victoria Falls.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the conservation projects that the foundation's funding?
Yeah, I can. So we have keynote species at the foundation. We do wild dogs, rhinos, lions, snow leopards, of course elephants, pangolins, and chimps. I think I've got everything. And they go from Africa to Asia. I probably could say my personal favourite is the elephant orphanage in Zambia. It's through a project we run with Game Rangers International, GRI, and they basically started with David Shepherd going out there with his wife. They had a baby elephant that was just dumped at their doorstep, do something with it. And they did, they built an elephant orphanage, and now today it's one of the most celebrated educational tools that Zambia uses to educate people about poaching, about the ivory trade, and it's funded by David Shepherd, so it makes everybody at the foundation immensely proud to be able to say something like that. But all of our projects are so unique and all of them are so special. It's hard to pick a favourite, but those baby elephants really do get me.
Yes. So the animations are mine, yeah. So I animated them on Procreate, on iPads over a month, which was quite intense. But yeah, so they're all mine. Although actually, the piece where he walks, that's TICH's original drawing, then I sketched over it, digitized it, and then animated it. So I took one of his drawings, because I wanted to have one of his drawings turning into an animation. So that was kind of his, yeah.
How much of a plan did you have when you went out? Did you know what you were going to do, or did you have a fairly blank sheet?
I had planned it. So I did. You have to plan it. I had to plan it. You should always plan things. I mean, it's not what I planned to do. As in, I went out there and I really don't like planning things. I like doing the risk assessment. I didn't like planning the story because I never met TICH in person, and I didn't know because I wanted it to kind of reflect what was out there, and I hadn't seen what was out there, and so I had a really loose plan, and it's not. I mean, I can tell you if you want, but it's not what happened. And then things changed when we were out there. So, for example, the elephants. There were 2 herds, so I didn't know which herd we were going to get. So I planned for both herds, and we got the second herd, not the first herd. And also, we did not get very much time with the elephants. I was thinking, we'll have like half an hour and he'll sketch the elephants, and then I know the elephant just kind of walked through. And so things like that were quite unexpected. So that's quite difficult to plan for. I also was never expecting to author it, where my voice goes through the entire film. I kind of didn't really want to, because I wanted to really focus on TICH, but actually, I don't know, I spoke to a few people when everyone was kind of like, well, you should probably be in the film too, because it's kind of both of your stories, and TICH often speaks to me off camera, so it makes sense to have my voice guiding it with TICH's. So there were lots of things I didn't plan.
You also didn't plan for TICH being an hour late to his first
Oh my
exhibition.
goodness, yeah. Yeah, TICH was an hour late. We turned up and he just wasn't there, and no one knew where he was. And he'd just gone home, and I think he was really nervous, and he just was so worried that people weren't going to come and they weren't going to like his stuff. Even though, like, I told him that they were, but actually having done my own exhibition, it is like a it's exactly how you feel. So, so I can actually, I think after my exhibition, I sent him a voice note and I was like, yeah, I know exactly, I know exactly how you felt, yeah.
Is his work now sold everywhere? Has he been able through those exhibitions to now promote his work?
I think so, yeah. So he's had like more kind of exhibitions, and he's had like exhibitions where he's sold stuff. So before Christmas, he sold quite a few pieces, and I'm hoping that especially when I release the film publicly, that will make quite a big difference. But I know that he's definitely had sort of sales, and he sold a few things on that exhibition that we had out there. I think he sold a couple of prints and things. So I think so, and I hope it will continue to kind of just draw attention to him as an artist and to other artists out there, because there are so many talented artists in Victoria Falls and in Africa. So yeah. There was a question at the back.
Yes. Elisa, what have you got planned next for your own artwork and any more films?
Oh goodness, that's a huge question. Yes, okay, I'll do the film one first, because that's easier. I've just got a grant from WageQuest, who are an organisation that conserve wages around the UK, and so as part of that I bought this camera, because I didn't have a film camera before. And so for that I'm going to be producing a film about curlews and looking at their song and how they're quite mysterious creatures. Lots of people love them, lots of people haven't seen them, lots of people have heard them. And so I'm going to be focusing on curlews and their song, and that's going to be partly animated and it's going to be partly filmed, a bit like this. But it's also going to have a lot of different voices, because curlews have so many different people working to conserve them and to protect them. So people who are writers and artists and songwriters, as well as gamekeepers and landowners and conservationists and scientists. So I kind of want to sort of have all of that in like a short film that I'm going to be producing this year for release next year. And then the art one, oh my goodness, it's huge. I've been doing a few artivism pieces recently. I've been experimenting more and more with colour since meeting TICH, which has been really fun. I think over the last few years my art's changed quite a lot, but that's been really, I don't know, it's quite nice to kind of look back and see how much I've changed my art style. I don't know, have I got any like specific kind of art projects? I'm working on a prehistoric series at the moment, so they're all kind of like paleo pieces, things that don't exist anymore. So yeah, I guess that's the thing that comes to mind. I don't know, but the one that started.
A question about the able to the possibly exhibition. With the new categories, is there anything in particular that you are looking for, or are you just waiting to see what comes in?
That's a really good question. I was actually part of the judging process last year, and when I say what comes in is eclectic. There is from some of the most bizarre things you'll ever see to actual masterpieces that you think there should be in the British Museum. So really, it's about expressing yourself, and you don't have to fit within any boundary or be limited by anything. It's what you feel, and you put it onto a canvas, and that's it. That's what we look for. We look for passion and skill or professionalism. It doesn't matter to us. It's just about feeling what that artist feels.
I'd recommend targeting the new categories as well, probably because they're going to be less subscribed, so maybe
Definitely.
a chance of getting in.
Yeah, so Abstract World is one of our new ones, and that's a very expressive category. Obviously, abstract art is completely non-figurative, so it can be 3 strokes of canvas, or it could be a line that's made up of very short, sharp brushstrokes that you have to stand really far away from to see. And I think by introducing this category, it opened the door to a lot of artists, especially coming out of art school, that don't really fit the mould. They don't really want to sit and paint a line just as it looks. They don't feel that when they look at it. And I think by introducing that abstract category, it allows people to be a little bit more, I choose the word flamboyant for a reason, because it is. It's completely off the track. So that's a good one, and obviously Youth Exclusive, which is starting from 17, so everybody from 17 can enter.
We've got a couple. Has Titch seen the film and what's his thoughts of it? And also, if like people here tonight wanted to buy prints of his artwork, like can you buy them through David Shepherd, or does he have a website?
Yeah, so he has seen the film. I sent it to him, and then he took about 2 months to watch it. But he has seen it, and he really likes it. So I'm very pleased, because it mattered to me a lot that he liked it. So and his kids and his wife have seen it and they all like it too. Buy them directly through him. So he has an Instagram and a Facebook and a TikTok. But probably contact him through Facebook and Instagram. His handle is TICH the Watchman. But if you can't find him, contact me and I will push you in his direction. But yeah, if you drop him a message, because he does do prints, but I think it's quite complicated to send them out to UK, so you can definitely do it. So,
Another one at the back.
I've got a question for Martin.
Feeling left out.
Sometimes it feels like there's an overwhelming amount of issues in the world. How do you kind of hone on specific ones? How do you go about finding the ones that mean the most for you? So you're not being too general with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. There are a lot of issues. It's true. But I think, I mean, part of it's not really a question, but how I deal with that is through artivism. Practicing art. We've spoken about this before. It's so good for your mental health, and it's a way that you can address these really serious issues in, I guess, a safer space. But there's just so much that you can cover, and that's the nice thing about art compared to filmmaking, maybe, or if you're making those big BBC films that take 4 years in production, you have to be quite selective about what you look at. But we don't have to be that way, especially if you create work as quickly as you do, or Alicia does. You can cover all sorts of issues. For me, I don't know really. I'm always thinking about all different things, and then suddenly an idea will just come into my head when I'm, in the shower or some walk or something, and I just have to go and get it down on paper. At least the idea, because the process is long. The process takes several weeks, months sometimes. But does that answer your question in some way? Yeah. I'm currently working on an elephant that looks an awful lot like that, actually. It's that, the perspective, I was drawn to that perspective. And it's a piece that I've had in my mind for a little while, and I'm really enjoying it. So. Thanks.
Again, for you.
Oh!
I know for Alicia, when the whale sang was sort of
Yeah.
the first step into artivism. Was there a moment or a piece that for you set you on that journey of exploring artivism?
Do you know what? I think I mentioned it in the talk, but that moment where I was kind of embarrassed that the filmmaking course was me. For all embarrassment was coming from me, but that really hit home. I was like, yeah, that's a really good point. Unless you tell them, how are they going to know? But then it wasn't for a few years until I started working, until I sort of turned to artivism. But I just reached a stage where I was just getting frustrated with my own work, that it didn't seem to have enough meaning behind it. And I felt like because I use one medium, plastic pencils, and I felt like I'd almost mastered the medium. And so I was really pleased with my work from a technical point of view, but it was the meaning, it was the message. For me, it needed to have more to it. And that's kind of how I sidestepped into artivism, which is a term that is quite common. It's maybe been around for 20 years, but I kind of added wildlife to it to make it appropriate for our industry. And yeah, I've been promoting it. Alicia took up the call, and so many other artists as well. Some of them here tonight are producing artivism works, which is really, really great to see. And I think the practice is growing, and now we've got the category away as well. So hopefully we'll see more awesome artivism.
We have time for one more question, so go for it.
I was going to ask, how is artivism, how is the piece determined to be artivism?
Yeah, so that's it doesn't really matter. It's up to you, really. For me, it's the call to action, I think. So artivism is kind of in wildlife. It's like a reaction to the changing world, where we have to just be a bit louder to be heard, because maybe once upon a time, people had the time to sit and really take in beauty and for that to inspire, but especially online, just that world doesn't exist anymore. So, when you write a newsletter or something, everyone's like, calls to action, get all the calls to action in there. And it's the same kind of thing with art. I'm trying to embed message into the work, just so that it stands out, I guess. But like I said, if you are someone who's more traditional artist, but you talk about conservation, you're really active, you're out there trying to get it in the mainstream, then that's also artivism. It's the activism element. Yeah.
I guess sometimes it's just highlighting underrepresented species. Sometimes like species that people don't know about. And I think for me, it's the scientific message and stuff, and the kind of communicating a science and trying to show people this animal exists. Sometimes, like if you do something and someone's never seen it before, that's important too, because otherwise no one knows they exist otherwise. And that doesn't have to be like you don't have to show things in a kind of gory way or in a sort of distressing way. You can show them in a really beautiful way, or you can just show them in this traditional sense, and people go, "Oh my god, I didn't know that existed." And I think that is artivism too.
I want to thank everyone for coming again. It really has been amazing, and your support has been phenomenal. I have an extremely important announcement with the raffle winner. Number 96. Oh, the name's on the back. I'm so bad. I'm so sorry. Wow. Gabriel? Oh, it's okay, guys, if you want to make your way downstairs, have a hot drink, and we can have a little chat down there if you have any more questions. But thank you so much for coming.